Ooh, that looks tasty. Folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we are talking about Expeditions Gears of Corruption, the first expansion to Expeditions from Stonemaier Games, designed by Jamie Stegmaier with art by Jacob Rosalski. And I do apologize if I mispronounced any of those names. Now, what this game is this is the first expansion for Expeditions. And if you haven't heard of this yet, that's because I've been holding on to it for a couple of weeks or a month or so, and it has been under wraps, as it were. So what you're seeing here is an advanced copy of exactly what everyone who orders this game is going to get. And thank you to Stonemaier Games for sending this out my way. Now, before I get started, please make sure you turn your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that is where you'll find the corrections. If you are not familiar with Expeditions, I recommend you check out my other video that talks about how the game is played, but ostensibly this is the sequel to Scythe, and this is more of a tableau engine builder rather than a quasi-area control combat style game. But if you are not interested in what is new in this expansion, just want to jump ahead to my final thoughts, then we'll go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about the new things. First of all, there are a couple card corrections. There's a couple of new cards, like this glorious beast right here with the Amulet of Bravado, and various other things like that. And hopefully you just heard my cat meowing in the background right as I picked that card up. There are also new double layer boards, which are going to, well, make everything a little bit easier to kind of keep in one place and hold on to. As you can see, they drop right in, like so. And there are also gold workers. These new gold workers are wild. So just as you can imagine, they can be used as any color worker that you may need throughout the game. Next, you have two new mechs. And as always, I have to say that I painted these mechs. No, they're not painted very well. The version of the game that you will get would come with gray plastic mechs or metal mechs, depending on which version you get. But I happen to paint mine because, well, I'm a nerd like that. You'll also notice that there's the green color here. You can now play with one more player and you have green as an option. In addition to these two new mechs, and I'll talk about what they do in just a minute, you also have cards that are used to draft mechs at the beginning of the game. And I'll just kind of place these out here, and you can see all the mechs also are now set up to come with starting resources every game, which gives you a little bit of a faster start than you had in the old game. And of course, down at the bottom, it tells you what all of their powers are. Now, next, if you're looking closely, you'll notice these suckers here look a little bit bigger than they used to be, and they are because the new ones, every time you explore the first time, not only do you take the token, but now you're going to flip it over and you immediately get to take whatever the benefit is. In this case, I could take any of those cards. This one right here, I could activate any of the surrounding tiles. This one down here, I could take any gear card, so I could take this majestic kitty cat if I wanted, and so on and so on. And now that I've mentioned those, let's also quickly talk about the powers of the new mechs. So first we have this Scarecrow mech here. So with this mech, anytime you take your refresh turn and pull back, you can also spend one of your map tokens here, whether it's one of the new ones or you've managed to collect one of the old ones in some way, and you can take one additional action. So I would pull back, I'd get all my cards, and then I could then move or play or gather if I spend this. So you get a little more flexibility on your refresh turns with the Scarecrow mech. Then with the Mole here, anytime you do a gather action, you can ignore all of the corruption stacked up on the tile. So in other words, let's say we were right here, I could do a gather on this tile with the Mole, and instead of only being able to do a sweep and recycle, I could go ahead and do an upgrade action even though I had not defeated that corruption there. And there are just two more things that I want to tell you about. There is also two new sets of starter cards. We have two purples where we have Balahan and Zephon. And what is particularly interesting about these guys here is, one, you'll notice they use purple cards. And the second thing you'll notice is these two here do not have the usual solve or vanquish abilities on them. So these two actually play quite differently. And then the other two are Freya and Loki right here, which are more like the traditional starting options that you have, where they do have the ability to assault and they do have the ability to do a vanquish, but they are still different and new. Then the last thing that I really want to point out, there are of course new AI cards for the solo mode, but the next thing that I want to talk about is I think the biggest thing that this new version comes with, and that is the corrupt mech. And the way that works is, as soon as the first player puts out their first star onto the board, they are going to get the ability to place the corrupt mech. And for that, you just take any of the other mechs that you have in the game, and they get to place it out anywhere they want that is not occupied. And so let's just say that we're here, and green placed their star, and they place the corrupt mech right here. First thing that's going to happen is they're going to deal out 5 of these corrupt mech cards. And you place them down by the bottom of the board, but for now, I'm going to place them right here so we can see what's going on. And now, these cards here serve as another thing that you can vanquish. If you are next to the corrupt mech, then you can do a vanquish action, and you can pay what's on the top right here. So in this case, the Scarecrow could pay 1 might and 2 brain, and they would take this card, and this counts just like one of the corruption tokens when it comes to placing a star or getting points at the end of the game. And if ever all of the corrupted mechs cards are defeated, then it goes away. It too has been defeated. However, immediately before the player that placed it, every turn, you'll then draw the top card from the mech deck, and you'll place it out like so. That's again something else that can be defeated, but you will notice it has directions. So in this case, the mech wants to go southeast, and then it will go south. Well, so southeast would be this way. It can't go that way, so it goes around clockwise, so it would go south, and then it would go south again. But just for the sake of argument, let's say that we were in this situation here, and this card was drawn. Now, the first thing it wants to do is go northeast. So it would try to move here. It can't actually move there, so it would attack the other mech, and you would lose 1 might. Then it would go ahead and move on, which would be southeast, can't go there, and it would go south. And some of the cards have 2 on there, like these here, and some only have 1. And you'll see that they're going to attack a different stat or a different resource that you have every single time. And that covers all the new stuff, for the most part, in Expedition's Gears of Corruption. So, what do I like about this game? The first thing is, in general, I think this expansion is pretty much improvements across the board. In a nutshell, if you like Expeditions, I think this is pretty much a must-buy, because the game speeds up a little bit. Even though the overall gameplay isn't that much faster, it does speed up the beginning of the game, because each of the mechs is now coming with starting resources, as it were. Also, speaking of mechs, I think that both of the new mechs work very well. They're interesting, and their powers are just as good, if not stronger, than some of the old mechs. Now, what I think is one of the best changes to the original game are the new Explore tokens. I do like that every time you explore, you're going to get some kind of bonus, because that does actually push you to explore even more. Now, you could argue that if you're not exploring, you're not winning anyway, which I don't know that that is true. I think that's a little bit of a simplistic argument as far as this game goes. But this now pushes that exploration, which is pushing the flipping of the tiles, which is pushing the revealing of the melds and the boasts and all of those things. So that's where you're going to find those. All of it becomes a little bit faster because you want to get those tokens, and that overall, I think, actually does increase the speed of the game just a little bit. I also think the double-layered board, that's great. Honestly, I think it should have been that to begin with, so no complaints there. I think that's how it should be. And I think the gold meeple, the hero worker, is absolutely a great boon to have. So you start with that option that you can kind of play with, you can kind of use. I think that works really, really well. But what I think is the most interesting is the corruption mech. I think it's very interesting. I think it gives a real level of, well, randomness to the game. But I say that in the best way. Having that mech run around is really interesting because it just forces you to be a little more careful of your choices. And also, you can beat that mech up way easier than you can beat up most of the little corruption tiles. So all in all, I really like the corruption mech. I think that's something that I will probably never not play with again, unless maybe I'm playing with people that have never played before. I really, really like that. So, what are my quibbles with the game? And I have very little to say here. And I'll start with saying, even though the game is a little bit faster, it's still a slow burn of a game. It is not a fast game. It definitely takes time to play through, and the first several turns, it does feel like you're just kind of building up, you're not doing a lot. And I think that's what the game is, but I think it's very important to say that because a lot of people don't like a slow burn game. It does ramp up as the game goes, but you have to get there. And the only other quibble that I have is, this is not going to change your mind about expeditions. This is not going to take somebody that does not like this game, it is not going to make you suddenly like it. I've played expansions that do that before. This is not one of them. I think this takes a game that if you like it, you're going to like it even more. And I think it's an expansion that will take a game that if you're kind of on the fence, you're like, do I like this? Do I not like this? I think it's going to push you over into the I like it. Because as I mentioned, I think everything that this expansion is doing is for the good. I would never not play with any of it. I think all of it is valuable. So, there you have it, folks. As always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, one, that's funny that you know because, I don't know, there's 15 of us that have the game right now. If so, please leave me a comment with a timestamp so I can get that in the Klingon subtitles. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.